Hello, Dr. Carl here, and today I wanted to talk to you about the conservative case for Intactivism. Intactivism, like the broader men's rights movement in general, largely cuts across the traditional right-left spectrum. However, many people wrongly think that Intactivists are mostly left-leaning, and indeed many of my fellow conservatives in the United States wrongly think that it's a leftist concept, but it's not. It's for everybody. And today I wanted to give you reasons why every conservative should support the Intactivist movement. First of all, a very brief history. Circumcision was almost unheard of in the U.S. up until the late 1800s. It caught on in the U.S. and in the other English-speaking countries around then, largely due to Victorian-era masturbation hysteria. They believed it to be sinful and even dangerous. Now, the hysteria died out, but the practice became somewhat institutionalized. And in time, the other countries largely dropped it. Only in the U.S. has it sort of persisted. And thankfully, the numbers are starting to decline, and the Intactivist movement is really catching on. And that's why at this point I wanted to give you reasons why conservatives should support the Intactivist movement. First of all, it's pro-United States of America. Now, at first glance, that argument may seem odd, as the majority of men in the United States are cut. But like I said, up until the late 1800s, it was nearly unheard of. So think of all the great American men that came before the late 1800s. You had the original settlers to Jamestown and Plymouth. You had the Revolutionary War veterans, the Founding Fathers, the westward moving pioneers. You had Civil War veterans, the cowboys of the Old West. Now, I mean, are you going to tell me those weren't real American men? I mean, after all, probably all, not even most, probably all of the Founding Fathers were intact. And indeed, I suspect they would be disgusted to learn that this ever caught on in the United States. One of my favorite memes with regards to that is, "Dear Americans, we are disgusted by you. If we had known that this would catch on, we would have banned it in the Bill of Rights. Sincerely, your Founding Fathers." And to those of you who think that the real American men were the Native Americans, well, they were mostly intact as well. I would also like to add that there are a number of famous intact men. If you go to circumcisions.com, there's a whole gallery, and you could find men like baseball players like Jose Canseco, basketball players like Shaquille O'Neal, football players like Joe Namath, NASCAR drivers like Richard Petty, and Elvis. I mean, what could be more American than baseball, basketball, football, NASCAR, and Elvis, right? Another reason is it's certainly Western. And many of us conservatives value our Western cultural heritage with other Western countries. Outside of the English-speaking world, this has basically never been practiced in the West. Not in Europe, not in Latin America, and as I said, the other English-speaking countries have largely dropped it. It's just the U.S. where it kind of remains stubbornly high, although I say kind of because thankfully the numbers are declining notably. So it'd be a great way for us to re-embrace our Western cultural heritage and drop doing something that the rest of the world usually associates with either Muslims or Africans. And that brings me to my third point, that it's pro-Christian. The United States is one of the few countries outside of Africa where Christian men are cut. I have lived in two places where Christianity meets Islam, the Balkans and the Caucasus. And in both places, most Christian men are intact, whereas the Muslim men are mostly cut. And being intact is part of the Christian identity. And I know for me, being intact is an important part of my Christian identity. Many people wrongly think the Christian faith requires it, but they're just looking at the Old Testament. They don't realize that the New Testament actually forbids it. I wanted to read to you a couple of verses from Paul's letter to the Galatians in the King James Version of the Bible. Chapter 5, verse 2. "Behold, I, Paul, say unto you, that if ye be circumcised, Christ shall profit you nothing." A little further, verse 6, still chapter 5. "For in Jesus Christ neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love." There are other passages in the New Testament that make it clear that this is not a Christian practice. And in fact, the Catholic Church actually officially banned it in 1442. So we need to re-embrace our Christian heritage. Indeed, Jesus was the final blood sacrifice. Christ's blood was shed so ours would not have to be. To cut in the name of God is to make a mockery of Christ's sacrifice on the cross for us. As I said, this is no more part of the Christian faith than other things in the Old Testament, such as kosher food laws or observing Passover. At this point, I also wanted to make it clear, though I mentioned that the U.S. should not do something usually associated with Africa or the Muslim world, I do also want to see those parts of the world stop doing it too. There are a number of Christians in Africa that they are betraying their Christian faith. As for Muslims, we have a number of Muslim intactivists, and they point out that the Quran actually does not mention it. Instead, the Quran does have verses saying things like, everything you need is in this book. Nothing was left out. And other parts where they mention that God arranged everything just the way he wanted. And there's also a verse about how the devil will try to convince people to alter the body. So yes, I'm very proud of our growing Muslim intactivists. We also have a number of growing Jewish intactivists. And again, while I'm making this video about conservatives in the United States, realize intactivism is for everybody in every country, regardless of race, religion, culture, or what. Other reasons, it's pro-individual. We on the right have always been very pro-individual. And this respects the right of the individual to make decisions about his own body. And it's not government interference, which is something we are always against, because there's no other body part that the law allows parents to cut off for any reason or no reason at all. Indeed, we would be horrified by that, and we would all agree it should be illegal for parents to say, snip off an earlobe, right? Well, why is this the only body part that parents should be allowed to willy-nilly amputate for any reason or no reason at all? Obviously, that's not consistent and doesn't make sense, which brings me to my next point. It's pro-gender equality. While some of us on the right still believe in traditional gender roles, I myself am a men's rights advocate, and I believe in equality between men and women, and I believe both men and women deserve bodily autonomy and intact genitals. And it's the height of sexism to protect a girl's genitals but not a boy's. I also like to add that it's cost effective, and we on the right have always been in favor of saving money. I mean, billions of dollars are wasted on this through Medicaid every year. And some states, thankfully, have cut this from the Medicaid budget because we should not be wasting money on this. So all in all, I'd like to say I am proud to be a conservative, U.S. citizen, Christian, intact. There's not a contradiction in any of that. On the contrary, that is what's most logical. I'm Dr. Carl. Enjoy.